Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. In our last video we talked about the amazing signs that are coming together right now. So many things telling us we definitely see the day approaching, and we are here right now. We are at a very important time frame, not just one day. We've emphasized this before. We're at a time where Jupiter is at the foot of Ophiuchus. So many signs that our Redeemer is about to make his enemies his footstool. And this is not limited to a day. It is the entire time that Jupiter is at the foot of Ophiuchus, right over Scorpius, right in line also with Hercules' foot, right on top of the head of the dragon, also in line with Orion, which goes with the story of Scorpius too. So it's at a time frame here where we've been brought to, and we've just seen on October 22nd, the conclusion of 120 degrees, 1/3 of the stars marked out, that sign completing, bringing us right here to this window of expectation, right here where we are expecting him to make all those aforementioned enemies his footstool. We've seen them now all mentioned and all covered really on October 22nd. Right up until that point, they've now all been covered, but we're still right here at the foot, right here in the time frame where it's still drawing attention to this is the next expected prophetic chapter. He will be making his enemies his footstool, and we can definitely visually, literally see the day approaching where we are at right now. In our last video, we talked about how there are real-time signs that went with every single major chapter that we've seen rehearsed along the line. Ever since 2015, when we saw the star first appear, number one, we've been reminded of the story, but we've also been reminded of the celestial events that happened when those parts of the story occurred. So that informs us going forward. We will see the day approaching. Just like they saw days and prophecy being fulfilled, we saw how they saw. And that gives us the expectation that we will see as well. We will see the day approaching, and like even Christ himself said, look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. We will know it by seeing the signs, by seeing the day approaching. And we've definitely seen so much that the Lord has used to draw our attention to the prophetic time, to the lateness of the hour, but also inform us of what is coming next prophetically. And that helps sober us up to live accordingly, knowing the time. And so where we are right now, we've pretty much seen the rehearsal of all the story, all the aspect, as far as we know, that's part of this. Who are all the enemies? Who's going to be included in that? Who is the Redeemer? Who is the offspring? Who is the root? All these pictures we have now seen rehearsed, and we've been brought to this place at this time where, okay, we're here. We've just seen them all rehearsed. Here's a time where we are expecting the real-time sign, which is being highlighted even right now today. We have the real-time expectations. These are about to unfold any moment now. We have seen the day approaching, and we see we are right on top of the day right now. Praise the Lord, I got to go outside last night. We finally had a clear sky where I was able to look at the stars again and actually take pictures of them to share with you. So I want to share these pictures with you because I want you to see, yes, this is reality. I want to highly encourage you, if you can, somehow get out of the city, get away from the city lights, go to an area where you can see these celestial signs, because it will drive so much home to you. We make these videos to show some of the more particulars and boil down a lot of information, but do you want to know the best way that you can know the prophetic time right now? Go outside, look up, and lift up your heads. Look at the clock. That is the best way that you will know the time. And that is something we can all do, because the clock declares the time to all the world. This is readily seen. It is meant to be seen, and it's meant for signs and to tell time and seasons. And when we look up, we can literally see that this is the time. We will see the day approaching, because we see time in prophecy by the signs. And now's definitely a good time to go outside and see it. You can see Jupiter in the west about an hour after sunset. The signs are starting to set quicker and quicker every single day. Right down below that is Scorpius, right down here. Here's Antares, the heart of the scorpion. And if you have a really clear sky and really good eyes too, maybe use binoculars sometimes, you can see the smaller foot stars of Ophiuchus right here. And generally you'll see at least one of them. That'll give you a really good reference of where it is. Again, you can generally find the two hip stars of Ophiuchus. Draw a mental line down to Antares. That'll give you an idea the left leg is right over here on the left of that line. And then imaginary line down to that other notable star right there. That'll give you an idea of where the right leg of Ophiuchus is. And there's several stars here that make a distinct foot pattern in the sky as well. And that's where Jupiter is. And then Ophiuchus, the main body of it, goes up from the hips up there. So we see this whole story right here. And even though some of the other aspects are harder to find, right here along the line is where the story is told. This part here tells the time, because the ecliptic is in this area and the story is declared along that line. You just figure out where the sunset location is and draw a mental line to Jupiter, and then draw another mental line to Saturn up there, and that'll give you a good idea where the ecliptic line is. And then you can go up from that spot perpendicular to that line, and you'll see the rest of the story in line up above that, and Hercules and Draco and all that. But right now along the line is what tells the time. Jupiter at the foot of Ophiuchus. Who is Ophiuchus? Ophiuchus is the offspring of the woman. He's the one who sprang out of the woman, who ultimately sprang out of Judah. So the story will take place here because that's what the prophecy deals with. It will be the offspring who crushes the serpent's head, who is the same one who bruised his heel. It's all right here in this spot where you see Jupiter, that bright shiny spot in the evening sky. It's not going to be up there or somewhere else. Those are related. It's all tied to what is the story being told here in the story of the offspring, who's also the root, too. So this part here is what tells the time. It's also primarily where the story is anchored, right here at the spot, Jupiter at the foot. Now last night I got to go outside and tried to take a picture to show you the immensity of the signs. These are incredible signs. They take up a good portion of the sky, but it's all visible. That's what's so incredible. That's what should impress upon us the reality. When we can go outside, and if you have a clear sky, you can see the entire story of this sign. And so last night I was able to take a couple pictures and overlap them and kind of stitch them together somewhat to give you an idea of the panorama that is seen. If you look toward the west, over here is Jupiter, and then over here is the north, so that gives you an idea of the stretch that we're looking at here. But again, find the ecliptic. That's one of the first things I always do. Let me get my bearings, find Jupiter, find where the sun's set, and then that'll give you an idea of where the ecliptic is. And so sometimes I bend over sideways so I'm in line with the ecliptic, so I'm looking at everything else oriented to the ecliptic. But it's all going to be diving down toward the sunset location. And the line that we see lining up with all the stories is going up from that point. So once you find the ecliptic, that really helps you get your bearings and at least, okay, where am I supposed to be looking and where am I going to find these other constellations? And generally, I like to find the hips of Ophiuchus after that, and that really gives me an idea of where is this main portion of the story. Usually you can see Scorpius pretty well before it sets. But then you start finding Ophiuchus, you find his two hip stars. That gives you an idea. Then look up for a triangle up there. And that's going to be the head of Ophiuchus right there. So you have the head and the hips, and that gives you a good idea. And then, of course, you know where his legs are. So that's Ophiuchus, the offspring of the woman. He is also the root of David, a lion of the tribe of Judah, our high priest. He is also the one who's going to be making his enemies his footstool. So the story is going to be happening right here in this constellation. That's why we're watching Jupiter at his foot, so especially right now. Now to find the other stars, one thing I look for sometimes is the Big Dipper, and that's going to be over here. But that's usually easy to spot. It stands out. And if you follow the front lip of the ladle of the Big Dipper, and usually follow that up a little bit, that will bring you right to the tail of Draco right there. It's going to be faint stars, but then once you get an idea where you should be looking, you'll start seeing a little string of stars. And then the head is easier to spot because it has the two cat eyes, as they're sometimes called. The two eyes stick out really good. So if you have an idea of, okay, I think that's the head up there, and the tail should be over there, then usually with a little bit of looking and letting your eyes get adjusted, you can usually see most of it and see where it's supposed to be. But once you find the two cat eyes, that tells you exactly where the head is. So now you have one of the main adversaries, Draco up there, Ophiuchus, and you know where his head is at. So Hercules is going to be in between both of these. And you look for a little rectangular shape right here. You see these four stars right there? That is his main body. So it's not quite in line right between them, but it's going to be slightly below that. Then you should be able to find his kneeling leg, the stars of that, which are right on top of Draco's head. And all this will be in a line over there. And then you'll have a pretty good idea, once you see where the main body is, the arms that come off of it and his other leg over here as well. But he's definitely kneeling right on Draco's head. And if you look right below Hercules, right in this area, you'll see Corona Borealis, the crown right there. And that is the crown that the serpent is reaching up trying to get. This is Serpens. Serpens is a big constellation that overlaps with Ophiuchus. They're actually two separate constellations, Serpens and Ophiuchus right there. Ophiuchus is wrestling the serpent. He has the head portion of it in his left arm and the tail portion in his right arm. Kind of wraps around him. But the serpent has been trying to get the crown. And so this gives you an idea of how to look for them all. The crown is a little harder to see. It is faint, but if you have a good crisp sky, you'll be able to see it really well. Usually that one brighter star will give you an idea of where to look for the rest. And then you look for a little triangle for the serpent's head there. and that'll give you a good idea of where these figures are that we've seen the story of. And so again, once you find the ecliptic, you can see how they are in line, and this is easier when you're outside in the sky and it's not all squished down here into the screen. But again, go perpendicular up from that spot, and you go up to Ophiuchus's head just a little bit on this side of it, the left of it, and then you just go up to Hercules' foot, just a little smidgen to the right of that, and then smack to the head of Draco. And that is one perpendicular line up from the ecliptic. So all these are in line while Jupiter is here at the foot, and Jupiter's going to be there for several more days. So all during this time, it's still in line telling this story. Ophiuchus' foot on Scorpius, Hercules' foot on Draco, and of course Hercules is bashing the snakes that he has in his hand there too. And again, the story with Ophiuchus involves both serpents and Scorpius beneath him, because they tell the twofold aspects of the story, having the heel bruised of the Redeemer, but also how his same heel from that same individual would bruise and crush the head of the same enemy who bruised his heel. And then if you follow the line up and over, you'll recognize constellations that will tell you it does lead down to Orion as well, which again goes to the story of Scorpius. So again, you can go outside and just look up at the clock and see this story being told. As long as Jupiter is here at the foot, the right foot of Ophiuchus, that is a story that's being told, and it's being multiplied over, really emphasize at this spot along the line that this is a time to expect these events to happen. And after about November 1st, November 2nd, Jupiter will be passing the foot, leaving the constellation of Ophiuchus. So we're at a small window here where we see the sign emphasized, also realizing that the story is not going to be told for much longer. The whole lineup is all going to be emphasized for several days, but then once it goes past the foot, that's not being emphasized anymore. And you can see by then the lineup is starting to move away from the foot of Draco as well. So right here in this window, that's where we're looking right now. And we're just at the start of it, so we have a few more days to about November 1st or 2nd. The whole time while this sign is still very, very strong. And one of the neat things about this time is you can go out in the evening about an hour after sunset, or you can go out in the morning. If you're a morning person, go out about an hour or even sometimes 2 hours before sunrise. And praise the Lord, a few days ago I just happened to be up, and so I was able to get some of these pictures, and we had a clear sky through some of the clouds. And you can see some incredible sights, because if you look toward the east, kind of southeast a little bit, you'll see Leo rising in the morning. Again, a powerful reminder. In the evening, we see the offspring. In the morning, we see the root. We see both sides of this whole story. Beautifully declared. Leo rising in the sky, rising majestically. So powerful. You can see Regulus right there. You can usually identify him by the hook sickle shape of his head right there. Here's his front paw right here, so his arms reaching out that way. Here's his belly right here. But definitely look for Leo. It is so incredible, especially when we've considered all the signs that we've seen with the root and the offspring. It's a combined and connected story. And then I was also able to get a picture of Orion and Sirius rising in the morning too. Sirius, that's right here, it is the bright and morning star right now. Venus is only the bright and morning star if it's seen in the morning, and it's seen in the evening right now. So the bright and morning star is Sirius, and Sirius is a fixed star too. It's not a wandering star, it's a fixed star. So we see this in connection with Leo, because that rises at the same time. You'll see it a little more toward the east in the sky, but then you'll see Orion, and both of these are rising up shortly before Leo in the sky. Powerful pictures, especially when we consider, if you go out in the evening and then you wake up a little bit later and you see Orion, just consider how these are connected. And you'll get an idea of how the heavens move, and you'll be able to see mentally, if nothing else, how they do connect, how the line does go through them all as the heavens rotate around Draco. So beautiful, powerful story here. In the evening, we have the reminder of the offspring whose heel was bruised. In the morning, we also have that same reminder, because that's what Orion pictures too, the one whose heel was bruised by the scorpion too. And you can easily see the Lion of the tribe of Judah rising up in the sky too, reminding us how he will be rising up. He sat down at the right hand of the throne of God, but one day he's going to stand up and put his foot down on his enemies and make them his footstool. And we have so many things telling us that this is a time to expect those events to happen. Here's a little closer zoom in on it. I really want to encourage you to go outside and look up, whether that's in the evening or in the morning. Just look at the majesty and the handiwork of our Creator, His celestial clock. That is for signs and for time. And the more that we see it and see the majesty and beauty of it, we can also see the time. And we can start to see more of how these pictures go together, especially when we do see how the heavens move and the clockwork moves, and how we've been brought to this time on the clock. And it all goes back to Christ's instructions. Look up, lift up your heads, for your redemption draweth nigh. That's how we know the prophetic time. That's how we know the time today. We don't necessarily need someone to make a video about it, although that does help point us in the right directions. We can look on the clock that God has given us for signs and time, and we can see the time, that this is a time where we are expecting Him to make His enemies His footstool, because that is what is declared in the heavens right now. If you have binoculars or a spotting scope, you can zoom in a little bit on Jupiter by the foot. That's what I did here. You can see Jupiter, a bright star. Here is the foot stars of Ophiuchus. Right there's the hip star of Ophiuchus. So you make a mental line there, and you got the leg right there. Now, when we look at Stellarium, we can see that October 22nd, that's when it marked 120 degrees Jupiter did from when the star first appeared. That was right in the foot, definitely by one of the more notable stars in that foot. But it's going to be here for several more days, but not too many. By November 3rd, you can see it's going to be past the heel. By the 1st, it's really starting to get past the heel. 2nd, it's kind of out there too. So this sign is just for a limited amount of time. Just for a very limited time. But all during this time, it's going to be lined up with everything else multiplied at this time, telling us this is a high time of expectation. And last time we talked about how Christ emphasized the connection, how He's coming in the days of Noah and Lot. Which, since He emphasized the particular details of that, those familiar with the story know that there's a 7-day delay in there from when God told Noah and his family to start loading up the ark. 7 days before judgment came. And it has caught my attention that there's 7 days still left very strongly from the time we saw the 120 degrees marked, where Jupiter is still well within the foot, right here, of the foot that's going to be treading on the adversaries. We can't say definitively anything about that, but since Christ had mentioned it more than once, and was very specific about the day that Noah entered into the ark, which gives you a big hint, if anybody knows the story of it, that there was a warning 7 days before the actual day of judgment. It is something definitely to be considered, especially when we see how it lines up with the celestial clock, that there's 7 days still pretty much emphasized if you count inclusively on that day, or one more day if you count starting afterwards. It has definitely caught my attention. And again, keep in mind, this sign is for several days. Through November 1st is pretty much where it's going to be strongest. We've seen Jupiter's come up in its path. Here at this path, this whole blue line, this whole blue ribbon, right with the head of Ophiuchus, in line with the foot of Hercules, right on the head of Draco, right in line with Orion over there. So all these are right in line, most powerfully connected to the foot stars of Ophiuchus, the one who is about to make his enemies his footstool, about to bruise the head of the one who bruised his heel. And again, multiplied 2 times over. That story is twice told at this point along the line. And so for 7 days till November 1st, this story is still strongly declared along the heavens. We've been brought to a point, just like Noah, he was warned ahead of time, now get ready, judgment is about to start. Likewise, we've been brought to a point, too, where we've been brought here. Now we have full expectation for the rest to be fulfilled right while the sign is still going on. When we look on the timeline, I've updated it a little bit to condense some of the information. Again, showing that this whole lineup is for a certain window, a time frame. That is what we're looking at here. Pictures here show you where Jupiter's going to be at in the foot along these different days here. So that gives you an idea of how is the sign. If you can't go outside and look up at the clock, this gives you a brief summary of what the clock is showing right there. And so it's all up through November 1st. On October 22nd was when 120 degrees was marked out. That whole identifying of the 1/3 of the stars that is going to be cast down. So that's not necessarily limiting this sign, because it's happening within this window where the sign is being strongly declared. All during this time, it's telling the same story. It's telling the same thing. So we are at a high watch time during this time. And again, like Christ said, but as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. It's going to be just like the days of Noah and Lot. For as in the days, plural, that were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and knew not until the flood came, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. It's going to be just like that. And take note that he records and preserves those specific details, that there was a period of days, even up until the judgment day, that Noah and his family especially knew that judgment was about to start. Over a period of days, 7 days before it actually started. But it wasn't until the day, the final day, that judgment actually came. And so when we see how Christ emphasizes these particular details and brings them to remembrance, we take note of it. That's all we can do. We can't state definitively, but we can see that he's definitely strongly emphasizing the period of days right before judgment, even up until the day. He is emphasizing that time window, so we do take it into consideration. Life will be going on like normal up until the day that Christ comes. But like Noah's example, him and his family saw the day approaching for 7 days. Something to take note of when we look at the celestial clock right now, how the Lord has especially drawn our attention to the 1/3 finally being marked out. And where does it happen? Right in a time frame, a window of Jupiter at the foot stars, right where we are expecting the Redeemer, the offspring, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, to make his enemies his footstool. Right here at this window is where that sign brought us to. Right with a period of 7 days, even still on this month, that's associated with the constellation of Scorpius. That alone caught my attention. Right here, even during this time that has even been recalling the story of Noah. So many things tell us and remind us of what our Lord told us to do, told us to look up, told us the likenesses of how his coming is going to be, and we see that day approaching, spelled out so clearly and declared in the heavens right now. So many things reminding us of our Redeemer's instructions, his warnings, and that we can look up, we can lift up our heads, and we can know that our redemption draweth nigh, because we will see the day approaching. I highly encourage you to check out our resources. Links are in the description box. When to watch, a good review of all the instructions where Christ plainly spelled out, this is when I am coming for my servants. Then the other books, Be Ye Ready, Running for the Prize. He gives us instructions of how he wants to find us when he does come. He wants us to know when he's coming, and he also wants us to know how we should be found when he does come too. We will see the day approaching. We will know our redemption is drawing nigh if we pay attention, if we watch. And this is his instructions too. If we're not watching, we're not paying attention to how we live, then we will be caught unawares, just like those before the flood who didn't see the day coming because they weren't watching. We're at a time that we've been brought to, a time that has rehearsed so many things before this, leading up to this point, the backstory, the back enemies, understanding all the picture that's coming together, what's going to happen at a time when we see the day approaching. What's going to happen when that day approaches? We see all that coming together right here, and so much telling us that time is very, very short. We are at a high watch time, expecting the wise and faithful servants to be called into the secret chamber of safety, the rapture, right before the day of indignation starts. All on this journey that has been rehearsed by Jupiter treading down 120 degrees of the ecliptic line, 1/3 of the stars. We've seen it declare and rehearse the entire story. And what makes it even more sobering that this is a high time of expectation for our Lord is when we consider what all happened between when we saw the star first appear and where we are now. What happened in that window? The world heard the warnings of peace and safety. If you map out when those happened, they happened within that window. And that brings us right here to where we are expecting the day of indignation to start. That time of sudden destruction, when the Lion of the tribe of Judah stands up and starts making his enemies his footstool. We've been told what to expect, what to see, what to look for. We've seen it. We know some destruction is coming already. We've known that. So here we are at a point along the clock where it spells out this is the time to expect that to happen. If you look in our resource, When to Watch, you can find a quick review of the major peace and safety warnings that we've heard since 2015. All within this window telling us what's coming. We can see a day approaching. We know it's coming. And here we are at a time where we see it declared very loudly that this is a time right here. We truly will see the day approaching. We've been forewarned about it in so many ways. We know the time. We know the last generation time. We know this is a time of sudden destruction expected. We know this is a time of the day of indignation about to start. We know this is a time where he is about to make his enemies his footstool. It is so easily seen when we look at the celestial clock and we look at the prophetic time. Everything is bringing us together to this time where we are right now, where we so strongly see a day declared that the day is approaching and we are here right now. And when we see the day approaching, we live accordingly, and so much more. We have not only heard so many things, we have seen so many things declaring, "The bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him." We see the day approaching that also declares our Redeemer is approaching, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, our bridegroom, our beloved. So when we hear the midnight cry with our eyes, our ears, and our heart, what should we do? We should rise up. We should trim our lamp. We should cast off the works of darkness. We should put on the Lord Jesus Christ, shining bright for Him, bringing glory to our Father, rising up and going out to meet Him, loving Him and serving Him, first and highest above all else. Maranatha.